Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, let's talk about some gear for a little bit. I want to be mindful of time. What are your go-to guitars, John?
Well, I play a lot of Telecaster. Mm-hmm. I play a lot of Telecaster with Josh, but I play a lot of Telecaster before I was with Josh, and I play it a lot in the studio. I think it's a great instrument. I think that design or that that model of guitar lends itself to a lot of versatility, and it's also super durable and super roadworthy. And I just am comfortable with it. So
is your Tele a Fender?
So I have some older Fenders. I don't have any new Fender guitars. I don't tend to like what's going on at that. Not to bash anybody, but I just don't tend to like what's going on at that factory these days. There's some custom shop stuff that's pretty cool. A lot of the that style guitar that I play live are from a brand called Fret King. They're out of England.
Interesting.
They have I don't know if you're familiar with Jerry Donahue.
No.
He's just a beastly tele player, and he's had a signature model with 3 different companies now. He had a Fender signature tele. He had a PV signature E-style guitar called the Omniac. And then now he's got one with Fret King brand. And basically what it is it's a T-style guitar with a big V, 50s kind of V neck on it. And it's got some interesting circuitry that kind of lets you fake a Strat out of phase sound and kind of lets you fake a jazzier like humbucker neck position. And it's got a Strat style neck pickup and then a regular Tele style bridge pickup.
Yeah, I'm looking at
and
it right now.
That's what that Jerry Donahue signature Fret King kind of got me into their guitars. And I've gotten
cheap.
They're super. They've got kind of 3 lines of stuff. They've got kind of 3 lines of production lines, I should say, and price points. But it's super affordable and it's super well made and it's super solid out here for the road. So that's one of my main guitars on the road. And then I've got a second Fret King that's like got humbuckers in it and is a little bit more for the more aggressive stuff. And then I'm really into older teles. I've got a couple of them, and that's not something I would necessarily bring out on the road. I've got a 69 tele that I'll bring out on the road occasionally.
You're kidding.
But it's, it's been through the mill. It wasn't, it's original, but it's not 100% straight. It's been refretted and, had a couple of modifications. It had a Bigsby on it at one time. So I don't feel as bad about taking it out. I've got a 53 Telecaster that I never leave the house with, or I'll leave the house with it, but I might play it on the session or the Opry or something. I'm not going to take it on the road. I took it on the road the weekend I got it, just because it was new and whatever. But I actually got it from a tiny little shop in upstate New York, and I couldn't even really tell you the name of it.
Interesting.
It was a road find.
That's wild.
I run into a lot of cool gear out here on the road, and I don't buy all of it. If I did, it wouldn't do me any good to be out here.
Dude, I hear that, man. I'm interviewing like all these custom builders, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, thank God I am disciplined because.
Oh yeah, man.
It's like
but it's funny, you know, bringing up custom builders. So, the Fret King thing was an eye opener to this, and also I really love. And I don't have a deal with them or anything. I just believe in what they do. I really love the kind of the vintage end of, you know, the vintage themed end of what Paul Reed Smith is doing, like the DGT and the McCarty and all that, and I have vintage guitars. I have several. I have a ton of vintage Gibsons, and I have several vintage Fenders. But I don't know that they got it perfect back then. You know, there's this theme of like older being better. And I definitely feel that with acoustic guitars. You know, one of my favorite acoustics it was another road find. I could have an entire separate interview on the story behind this thing, but it's a 43 banner logo J45.
Oh, wow.
And that thing is just the bee's knees, man. It just sings. It tracks great and super dry for rhythm and all that stuff. And it's just a great guitar. But you know, especially on the Fender end of things, what I found out is, you know, and I found it out from owning some old Fenders. I had to go through. I bought a ton of them, and I've let some of them go. But what I figured out is that, like, there's some playability things that are kind of modern conveniences, like a flatter radius,
yep,
or big frets that, you know, you take for granted because, like, when you grow up playing like an American Standard Fender or whatever, they already have those things.
Or lighter weight or thinner, you know,
sure,
sculpted body.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when I pick up, you know, my first vintage Telecaster before I really knew what I was doing was a 61 slab board. And when I first really started making, you know, sustainable amounts of money playing music, and I got lucky as a kid too. I knew, and a lot of this is because of my uncle, I knew a lot about gear. And it was before, like, all the forums got really kicking and everything. So, like, there was a lot of lack of knowledge about vintage gear out there.
Yeah. So we were in the right time at the right place, and you had the right guidance because he was able to say, hey, this is what you buy, this is what you don't buy.
Sure. Yeah, man, I bought a lot of stuff as a kid for, like, pennies on the dollar. And then I would either flip it or I would hold on to it. And, like, the way I got my first vintage Telecaster is I bought some Gibsons right before they discontinued making them with Brazilian rosewood fretboards.
Okay.
And I just squirreled them away until they were worth enough money that I could buy something else. And I did. And so I got this, like, great 61 slab board Tele, you know, like, one of the iconic vintage guitars, right? And I didn't like playing it that much because it had a 7 1/4 radius and it had tiny frets. And that guitar was super clean. I got it over at Gruen's. And I don't want to be the guy that ripped the frets out of it and put 6105, you know what? So I just had to sell it, you know, and that was my first. But, like, when I got my 53, I was deliberately looking for a guitar that somebody had modified a little bit, not just because it was a little cheaper that way, but also because there were things that I wanted done to it that I wasn't willing to take the depreciation hit for. Right. So, like, so my 53 has got, like, train tracks for frets. They're giant. But it was that way when I bought it, you know, and a couple of other things, but
that's smart. That's pretty smart, man. That thinking that, like, basically you let someone else pay for the repair, yet it depreciated the value of the guitar.
Right.
That's
they ate the depreciation, not me.
Yeah, man. So, that's a clever, very clever strategy there.
But it's funny, like, there are guitars like I have an old, I have a '63 Les Paul SG with like the sideways tremolo, right? Mm-hmm. And that guitar has got its own voice, and like man, that thing sings in a track or live. I love playing that guitar.
Your SG,
and so that's and so that's an area where like the vintage thing works, right? Like I like that guitar, and it's better than anything Gibson's putting out right now. But on the Fender side, what I've learned is like I'd rather have a boutique clone. I'd almost rather have a boutique clone of a Fender style guitar than the vintage thing.
Pretty much,
because
every musician I've talked with, every guitarist has told me that.
Because I can buy a Mario Martin or a Nash or any of those instruments, and I've owned just about all of those brands, and it's going to have a 10-inch radius and giant frets from the factory. It's going to play great when I get it.
Do they all come with all those boutiques like RS, Mario Martin? Are they all with steel frets?
Well, so you mean stainless? Or
stainless. Sorry, the stainless steel. The wiring, the fret.
Yeah. So I think some guys are using stainless. I don't think anybody's using it exclusively. I've had a few guitars with stainless frets, and I'm not sure about it yet. I like big frets, but there's something almost too slick about a stainless fret, and I'm a big believer in, and I've come to this conclusion as of late. It was not something that happened to me at a young age. But I'm a big believer in comfort zones as far as guitars, especially when you're being creative. Not necessarily as much when you're being imitative, because, if you practice enough, hitting your marks on any guitar is possible. Mm-hmm. But say, you're in the studio and you're trying to make a part come out, or like I have this quartet that plays every Tuesday night in Nashville. It's like a, kind of a fusion-y funk thing, and it's super improvisational, and it's super important there as well that you just be comfortable with the instrument that's in your hands, so you're not fighting it.
Right.
Because I've had a lot of vintage guitars. That 61 slabboard Tele is a great example. I could have brought that thing out with Josh all day long and played parts on it that I learned. But like when I was trying to create, I was always fighting that guitar. And so for me, it's been about condensing my collection to a group of, 10 electrics and 5 or 6 acoustics at the house. And, there's another complement of guitars that stay out here on the road, but that I'm super familiar with. I know exactly what they do. I know exactly how they sound and how they behave. And that way, when I hear a part in my head on a record, or I am thinking forwardly with my quartet, trying to play, an improvised 32-bar solo, or even when I take a lot of gigs in town, on days off the road that are showcases or just other gigs with young artists that, are playing in town. And, maybe I need a Strat for this gig with this girl or whatever on a Tuesday afternoon. Maybe it's, maybe a Strat's the best choice. And I've got 2 Strats at the house, and one of them behaves one way and one of them behaves completely differently. But I know that about those guitars. And if I had 7 Stratocasters, I would not know which one to grab.
Man, it's funny. I know a guy with 7 Strats, and he's always like, I think I'm going to buy another Strat. And I'm like, man, what? Is it like a fetish? Like
Well, at some point, at one point I had 9 Teles, and And what I realized is that I need the tele. I've got 3 out with Josh just because of tunings.
Right.
I've got one guitar that's like a capoed up guitar, and that's all it ever gets. It's actually intonated to be spot on capo 1.
Okay.
But it gets capoed in other places, and it's not as far off as it would be if it was intonated to be open. And so I've got that guitar, and then I've got my main guitar that is open position and it never gets touched with a capo or whatever. And then I've got a third one that is tuned down half a step. So that's 3 tellies right there that are on the road. And then I've pared it down to 6.
But you're a professional guitar player.
Right.
That's
what I'm
like
saying,
having a bunch of, computers, or if you're an internet business or something, I mean, that makes sense. This guy is like just a guy like me. I'm like, what the hell, man?
But but I've pared it down to where, like, as far as my in-town, I don't really count my road guitars.
Right.
Because they're all assigned to a specific purpose. But what I've pared it down to is that my in-town guitars, I either have 1 or 2 for every imaginable sound.
Mm-hmm.
For like a Strat thing, I've got a maple board Strat that's set up one way and a rosewood board Strat that's set up completely differently. And then, like, for P90s, I've got a P90 Black Beauty Les Paul that's set up one way, and then I've got an old 57 Les Paul Jr. that's set up completely differently. So, like, I'll have, or like when it comes down to needing something that sounds like a Gretsch, I have one Gretsch, and it's a great one. It's a Honey, I Shrunk the 6120. It's one of the 6120 Junior years ago, and it's a great Gretsch, and I know exactly how it works and exactly how it behaves. And when it comes down to humbuckers, I've got a great old 60s 335, and I've got a fantastic SG, and then I've got a really good PRS McCarty. And depending on what a track might need, or what a showcase might need, or whatever the gig is, I know exactly which one I'm going to grab. It's never in question. And I think there's a lot of power in that, to knowing, because you kind of mind meld to, okay, I'm hearing this part, or I'm trying to recreate this part, I need to play the SG.
Hey, let me ask you about your 335.
Sure.
That older 335 you have, compare that. What is different about that 335 to a good quality, let's say 335 that's 5 years old, from the early 2010s?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I have a newer custom shop one that I play on the road, and then I have the older one in town.
Okay.
So I can give you like a super direct comparison. What I find with vintage Gibsons in general is that, without question, they all sound more open and throaty and alive than the new ones.
What pickups are on both those guitars?
So I've got, I'm trying to think of what's in my, I've got there's a company out of England called OX4. Mm-hmm. And I've got they actually wind specific sets for specific dealers. And so Carter Vintage, and you've talked to Walter, mm-hmm. Carter Vintage has their own set with OX4. So I actually have a Carter Vintage.
Man, that's the one. They just came out with that about a year ago-ish.
That sounds about right, yeah.
And they're pricey. They're like $400.
They're expensive, but they're great. Man, I mean, they're worth it.
You know what?
They sound super close to an old Gibson PAS.
I still have that email, because when those pickups came out, I'm like, man, because I love Freddie King. He's one of my.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, that's gotta be, and I was like, God, they're expensive as hell, but I mean, this has got to be sort of like the holy grail for that, Alvin Lee. from 10 years after, or Freddie King sound that they.
Yeah, man, they're pretty. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, man. I have that 63 SG, right? Mm-hmm. One of the neck pickup of that guitar went out. Like, and it was an old early patent sticker, right after the PAFs were done. Pickup. And I didn't really want to have it rewound. And I didn't really want to modify it anyway. I just wanted to throw it in the glove compartment of the case and say, this is the original pickup, in case I ever sell the guitar.
Sure.
And I ended up throwing the Carter Vintage neck position pickup in that SG. This is how I got turned on to those pickups. My uncle was actually really big into them, and he kind of gave me the heads up on them.
Interesting.
And so I threw that neck pickup in that SG, and I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Like, it sounds just like the other one, except maybe better, And so I actually pulled the bridge pickup. So my 63 SG has 2 aux 4s in it now instead of the original pickups. I've got the original pickups, but I think the aux 4s actually sound better.
Yeah, I'm looking at
but on the same,
now.
They're on the same plane. They're trying to make that same sound. They just do it. The magnets are not as old and whatever. But so I've got the aux 4s in my new. We're back to the 335 thing. I've got the aux 4s in my newer 335. My 67 has the original pickups in it. They're patent sticker Gibsons.
The PAFs?
Well, they're not PAFs. PAFs ended in 62.
Okay.
So because they got the patent,
Okay. So, but they're the pickups that the PAFs patented.
Right. So I'm going to go full nerd on you for about 30 seconds. So the PAF thing started in 57, right? When they went to humbuckers on the Les Pauls and Birdlands. And those are the original PAFs. They had a sticker on the back that said patent applied for. Mm-hmm. And that continued through 62, that sticker, but they went to a slightly shorter magnet in 61. But it was essentially the same construction. And then that pickup was basically unmodified when they actually got the patent. They didn't change anything about that pickup again until the late 60s, when Gibson got bought out. And I guess they technically got bought out in 69, but nothing changed until 70. And so between 63 and 69, those pickups all have a sticker on the back that have a patent number on it. It's just like the PAF. It's just like the patent applied for sticker. It's a small black sticker, but it has the actual patent number. But they're basically the same pickup. And then in 70, a lot of things changed. But any post 70 humbucker you'll see has the patent number stamped into it, like into the metal.
Okay.
So anyway, all that to say, that was my nerd moment. But my 67 has the patent sticker pickups, which are essentially a lot like a PAF in tone. So pickup-wise, those guitars aren't that far apart. They're trying to do the exact same thing. But what I know about my newer one is it just is a little more barky in the mid-range. It doesn't have that super open, a neck humbucker on an old Gibson almost sounds like a really fat Stratocaster pickup. Like it's got a ton of attack. Mm-hmm. And no matter if you swap the pickups out or not, pickups definitely help, and pots and caps definitely help, because the electronics that they're putting in newer Gibsons really choke out the life of those pickups. Because the stock Gibson pickups aren't that far off. I can hear a lot more difference in changing the wiring kit on a new Gibson than I can changing the pickups themselves and leaving the wiring kit.
Oh, wow.
Pots and caps make a huge difference.
Just to clarify, I'm looking at these online. You've got the Carter 64. It meant to replicate the early patent number sound found in early 60s ES 335 guitars.
So that's what's in my SG and my Rode 335.
Right.
And then I actually have their Dwayne Allman set in a gold top Les Paul reissue.
Oh, that must sound sweet.
And they're a little more mid forward. They're a little bit more high output. They're really cool pickups. I really like them. But there's something about the old guitars, man, and I don't know if it's just the wood or whatever, but I mean, you just about can't beat that 67 335. What's really funny about that guitar is I bought that guitar in the middle of a session. I was on a record for this Red Dirt Oklahoma rock guy named Ryan Reed, who's fantastic. He's a great writer, great singer.
Why do I know them? Do they do the Kentucky Headhunters? Who do they?
Well, Red Dirt is an adjective.
Okay.
They the Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas scene is referred to as the Red Dirt scene.
Okay. Thanks.
But there's this cat named Ryan Reed, and I was playing on his record. He's based out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Great guy, kind of a Black Crowes kind of vibe to him. Mm-hmm. And so naturally, I'm playing on his record, and my go-to guitar on that session was my 335.
Right.
And at the time, I had this like late 90s 335 that I don't have anymore. It's all over his record, right? And we take a lunch. And on the way to lunch is this guitar store, and this guy's in town from Oklahoma, so he wants to stop at the guitar store. And we stop in there, and there's this 67.
This is in Nashville. This is in
Franklin, Tennessee, but it's just south. Yeah. And so we stop in, and I'll see the 67. He's playing something else. And I see the 67 335, and I just take it off the wall. I plug it into whatever amp they had, and I was like, okay, this thing's amazing. And I actually put a deposit down on it, went and finished Ryan's record with this guitar, and then came back and bought it.
That's like a $5,000 lunch.
It was an expensive lunch, but it was one of those things where I was like, well, I know I can sell my other one and offset a lot of this. And so that was one of those deals where I came into this guitar, in a kind of happenstance way, which most of the ones that I end up really falling in love with are that way. It's not something that I'm like everybody else. I spend way too many hours nerding out on Reverb trying to search for random stuff that I don't have. But the guitars that really stick with me are the ones that I found in some kind of random happenstance way,
Well, that's cool because they have a good story behind them too, which is always fun.
Absolutely.
Hey, I want to ask you 3 more questions, and we're going to wrap up. I'm trying to be sensitive to time.
Sure.
I appreciate all the time that you're giving.
Man, it's a day off for me. I'm on no time clock.
I'm your babysitter for today. I get that a lot. People call me and they're like, I'm like, man, I really appreciate you calling me from the road. They're like, no, I really appreciate having something to do from the road.
Yeah, well, absolutely, yeah, man. So.
Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
I do. I love the outdoors. I love to hunt and fish, cool. Which is interesting because actually the way I got the gig with Josh is, or I should say the way I initially made contact with this camp is, I became hunting and fishing buddies with Josh's band leader, because there's not a ton of guys in Nashville that are in the music business, but also love the outdoors.
That's really weird.
So
I would think hunting and fishing in the South is
well, you got to remember that a lot of the guys that are in the business are not from Tennessee. They're from it's a melting pot. So, It was rare to find somebody that was really into. We were into very much the same kind of music. He's a bluegrasser and traditional country fan. I'm not a bluegrasser, but I'm a bluegrass fan, and I'm a traditional country player. You know, and I love that stuff. And so we got to know each other through kind of hunting and fishing with each other, which was cool. So I love
bass fishing up there?
A lot of bass fishing. And I'm a big fly fisherman too. So I'll try to, you know, a couple times a year, I'll try to get out to the mountains and do some trout fishing. And then I'll usually come down to the Gulf Coast once a year, you know, try to do some flat stuff for speckled trout and redfish. And so, but I love to fish. I love to hunt. I love to deer hunt. And I love baseball. I grew up playing baseball, and I actually, you know, kind of met one of my best guitar playing buddies in high school because we were both on the baseball team together. Yeah, and he kind of kept playing baseball, and I, you know, at some point I figured out I'm not going to make a career out of baseball. You know, like I wasn't a horrible baseball player, but I was not even a collegiate level baseball player. So I kind of just let that fall by the wayside and spent that time practicing.
Work your strengths, as you said early on.
But I still love it. I turn into like a 5-year-old kid again whenever I see a baseball field, you know, so I try to go to games. I go to a lot of minor league games in Nashville. We've got the minor league team, the Nashville Sounds. And then I've got
league team for
the Oakland A's, strangely enough, you know, yeah. So I love to go to games. We try to go to games on the road. I especially, Josh is a big baseball fan too.
Oh, that's great.
So that works out. And then I've got this like bucket list thing. I don't really believe in bucket lists, but I have this bucket list thing of I want to see a game every ballpark.
That's a really cool thing. That's a very, you know, I can see getting enthusiastic for that.
And it's become kind of semi-attainable because of my travel schedule, right? Mm-hmm. So if we have a day off out here, if there, you know, even if it's a situation where we have to rent a car and drive a half hour, like we're going to try and catch a game somewhere.
That's cool, man.
So I love seeing baseball, and I love to hunt and fish, and you know, those are all things that I'm super passionate about that aren't my job. You know?
Yeah, that's important. That's really
and it is, man, because, you know, for as much as, and I have musical projects too that are not career related, that are, you know, I have that Tuesday night quartet, and then I have an original, no, not original, but like a cover band that we play all traditional country. It's called Orangatwang. We play all traditional country. We play one night a month. It's usually the last Monday of every month at a club in Nashville, and we dress in the suits with the bolo ties and everything. We do it up, you know, and we act completely goofy. Like our motto is everything's a joke but the music.
That's cool.
And so like we act completely goofy, and we dress up, and it's just a goofy endeavor. But those are things that are kind of like hobby level music for me, and it's all with players that do exactly what I do. They have some sort of mix of studio and live performance, and they are all on, you know, big gigs or do sessions or whatever. But we do it just because we love it. So on one level, it's nice to have that, which is like it's music without a goal. You know, it's music without
an expectation, I think, is probably what you're thinking of, looking for.
Right. Well, there is an expectation of like quality, but there's not
playing to your expectation, no one else.
Right.
Which is
right.
Very liberating.
It is. And so on one hand, it's good to have that, kind of keep your mind fresh. And, you know, if you want to play a song, add it to the set list. And if you want to not play a song that particular night, just say you don't want to play it, you know, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you're in control. But then it's good. It's very good to have things that just aren't even remotely related. And that's where the baseball hobby and the hunting and fishing come in. Because you know, if I put my boat in the water, you know, if we've been on a 7-day run and, you know, I'm just kind of mentally fried, or, you know, recently just completing, you know, a production project. I did this quite a bit because it's like at some point your brain just says, I think I've done this enough for this particular week. And, you know, and the other thing is I practice all the time. So like, you know, even when I'm not performing, it's like I have a guitar in my hands a few hours a day, and sometimes your brain just decides it's had enough. Mm-hmm. And if you try to keep doing it, it won't be productive because, you know, you're not there. You know, your brain's not there. So at that point, you hook the boat up to the truck and you go put it in the water and you blast down the river and you try to catch some fish. But even if you don't catch some fish, you got away from your job for a little while, and you really got to kind of rejuvenate your mind, which is important. Self-care, especially in this business, you know, physically and mentally, is way overlooked. And I know a lot of guys that have kind of gone down the rabbit hole so much that they ended up with some severe problems. And I don't ever want to be that guy. So self-care is important, and hobbies have a lot to do with that. So
I think that, again, that's a super, you've got some pretty good practical wisdom there that you typically don't often learn until you're older. So you're a clever guy. What are you looking forward to most in the future, either musically, professionally, or personally?
Oh gosh. Musically / professionally, you know, I'm really excited about I've been doing a little bit more production, and I like that.
Yeah, you can tell you had a lot of your energy was jumped up. You know, you're like childlike enthusiasm when you were talking about that.
Sure, and part of it's because it's a little bit new for me. Mm-hmm. You know, just being as far as doing it on a professional level and getting, you know, feeling like. Because every one of these skill sets, right, you don't want to uncork the bottle until you feel like you can hang. Yeah. So, totally so it's like, well, I may, like, you know, you're sitting in the back of the room, you know, playing guitar on a overdub session or something, and you're watching the dude work Pro Tools, and you're listening to his ideas, and you're kind of writing in that mental playbook that I was talking about. You don't necessarily want to advertise that skill set as something you do until you can do it at a high enough level that you feel like it's worth the money. You know what I mean? Sure. So I was that way with, you know, the first thing that I really uncorked was the live thing. Was, you know, playing with people live, because I've been doing it on some level since I was 16 years old, and I felt like I learned how to do it on a professional level pretty well when I was in college. And then like, you play it close to the chest that you want to be in the studio a little bit more, and then finally somebody, you know, asks you to be on a project, and then you do that for a little bit, and then you finally develop enough skills where you start to advertise that, you know. And so I'm comfortable saying that, you know, I play on sessions, and I'd like to do more of that. And then the production thing is like my new toy. You know, it's like it took me a long time to feel comfortable doing it and feel like I was okay enough at it that I could charge people money to do it for them. And now that I've got a couple records under my belt, you know, that I'm proud of, because the first few projects I did, you know, like I remember one that I did for an ex-girlfriend, and I really didn't 100% know what I was doing. And it was pretty low risk because all of us were young. Everybody on the project was young. It was post Belmont, but it was very much that situation. It was very much everybody else. And, you learn a little bit and then you grow. But I didn't advertise that skill set. I still don't really advertise the production thing yet. The last one that I did that's not out yet, and then this one that I'm currently in process with right now, are the first two that I've ever been proud enough of to say, okay, this is a part of my mix now. This skill of doing record production is something that I can do, and I can feel comfortable charging people money for, and making them think that they can trust me, because that's what it's about. Whether it's a performer that trusts you to not screw the show up, or it's a producer that trusts you to give them their money's worth as far as a record part, or it's an artist who trusts you with the more comprehensive process of, producing their record and hiring the right guys and making the right arrangement calls and all of that. It's all about trust. And so when when I feel like I can let somebody trust me with a skill, then that's when I start advertising it. And so I'm just feeling comfortable on that level with production at this point. So I think that's why I'm so stoked about it. I'm looking forward to doing more of it. I'm looking forward to doing more session work, because I'm absolutely stoked about feeling comfortable in those chairs, as of very recently. But, I think there's always going to be a part of me that likes to play live too. And fortunately, I'm in a situation that allows me to do that on, I won't say a limited basis, but on a basis that allows for the other parts of my mix, the other parts of my interests musically to also be attainable. It gives me the time to do that. So I'm just really fortunate. I'm super glad that I get to do this. And, every month when I write all the checks to pay my bills or whatever, I'm blown away that I got to do it with my guitar and my musical mind, and I didn't have to sit behind a computer somewhere, typing TPS reports. Yeah. I'm stoked that I get to do this, and so on some level, everything's exciting for me. Everything is something that I look forward to. If we haven't been traveling much, and I've been in the studio a ton, I look forward to getting out here and playing some shows. And if we've been playing a ton of shows with Josh, or I've been subbing with other people, I've been playing a ton of shows, I look super forward to whatever my next production is, or whatever my next session is, or to getting home and playing some chart gigs with, on a showcase or for a church or whatever. That's just whatever the next. I'm always excited for whatever I'm not currently doing. I don't know if that makes sense, but
looking forward to the next thing.
I'm always looking forward to the next thing. That's the way to put it, is that I'm always looking forward to whatever the next task is, because that represents a shift of gears, if you will, but I'm always excited to be doing this for a living. It's just, it's insane. It blows my mind. I can't believe it every day. So.
All right, John. Hey, I want to ask you just one more question. You sound like a genuinely happy person, and it sounds like you are super grateful, for even the little things in life. But what is your definition of happiness?
Oh my goodness. That's heavy,
it's a
man.
tough question. I know.
Hit me over the head with that one.
Yeah, it's a tough question.
I'm going to give it some thought so words don't just spew out. I think for me it has a lot to do with feeling fulfilled, in my personal and professional existence, and not letting one dominate the other. I have a very balanced life, and but even when I'm working, I get to do what I love, and it's pretty extraordinary that I get to live the life that I wanted to live, and support it by doing something that I completely enjoy. I guess that would be the definition: living the life you want to live and supporting it by doing something you completely enjoy.
That first part of your answer of feeling fulfilled personally and professionally, that's one of the best answers to that question I've ever heard. Because I've often thought, when I ask that question, I always think, man, what would my answer be? And I think that, not to take this and twist it onto me, because this is about you, but I really, that was a great answer.
It's just, it's tough, man. It's tough in this business it's tough to know when to take a break, and it's tough to know when to stay on the gas. It's tough to know when to say yes and when to say no. It's tough to know, what the right path is. Because nobody, for the most part, nobody's there to help. It's a very find your own path, and nobody else's path works for you. If you talk to, I know you've done plenty of these interviews, and if you talk to 75 guitar players or 75 instrumentalists, they'll have 75 different stories about how they started doing every facet of what they do. And it's been very, very, I'm not going to lie, it's been very difficult at times to sustain this career. And it's been difficult at other times to sustain relationships and, and friendships and everything else, because, you want to give time to people. You need to give time to people in your life and to yourself, but you also have to give a big old hunk of time to doing this and doing it right. And it's been very tough. I just happen to be in a place where, for now, the balance is working for me. The balance of road life and home life, and doing what I want to do when I'm, being plenty busy when I'm in town, and being plenty busy out here, and maintaining those relationships and friendships at home, and I'm in a good place with my, with my folks. I have a good relationship with them. And
where are they? Are they up in Wisconsin still?
They're in Nebraska. They moved 6 or 7 times since I've been in Tennessee.
Okay.
So it's all about, whatever, there are people in this world that need, a very regimented family existence or whatever. They need the kind of, I don't want to say like the Stepford thing, but kind of something like that, and that's fine. And then there are people that need complete chaos in order to thrive, and they, they're fine being out on a 200-day-a-year, rock tour in a van. And I've gotten a little taste of almost all of that. various parts of that in my life, even at my young age. And
how old are you? You're only like what, late 20s?
I'm turning 30 in December.
Wow.
And so I've taken a little taste of almost every way that I could do this. And I'm fortunate because, I was in a band that toured in a van with a trailer on it for about a year and a half, and we did 200 shows, and I came very close to quitting the music business right after that, because I was so burned out, and I was dating a girl at the time that was pretty adamant that I needed to do something else for a living, so I almost did. And I got my taste of that lifestyle of like not even involving music in my life. And then slowly but surely I found the recipe, if you will, that works for me, which is, I need a little bit of road life. I need a little bit of a well-run, professional, low to medium travel thing going on in my life, because I just enjoy it. I enjoy the stability of it financially, and I enjoy the ability to play live, in a professional environment where there's an expectation of quality.
You seem like a fairly low maintenance guy as well, which is is that correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's
that's the road. That's what the road does to you. You either become low maintenance, or especially doing it, like I said, with a band, in a van, you become low maintenance, or you don't cut it, Yeah. But those skills are applicable out here too. Even though we're on 3 buses and everything gets done for us, it's still, you don't want to be the guy that's always asking for more, dinner mints or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you seem to be that guy that's like very, self-sufficient. You're not. You're giving 110%. You're not. You seem like a low maintenance guy. I don't know why. You just seem like that.
I try to be, but yeah, like I said, I just found the mix of road and in town, and I just found the mix of work that makes me happy and that doesn't detract from the lifestyle that I want to live. In fact, it complements it. So I'm fortunate that it kind of all worked out for me so far. Like at this exact juncture, it's all making some sense. It's like everything's lining up for it to be the life that I kind of wanted to live. I don't know if it'll always be that way. I don't know if it'll be that way in 6 weeks or 6 months. I might, but I'm really fortunate that right now it all seems to make a whole lot of sense. So I think that contributes to me being a pretty happy guy, as you say, is that I found a balance that made some sense for me, and I'm rolling with it. So,
as to your comment about you don't even know if it's going to be in 6 weeks, a guy I know, he said something one time. He said, if you want to hear a good joke, tell God your plans.
Oh, well, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, because who the hell knows what's going to happen? It's life is
and
ups and downs.
And that's an interesting thing with me. It's so regularly come back in my life, is that I very much all about my faith and my journey through this business so far. Especially in hindsight, I can look back and see the hand of God moving through all of it, in ways that don't even, stuff would come out of thin air, like as soon as I was ready to just throw my hands up and quit, in ways that, again, we could have a whole separate interview about, that would like blow your mind, and you would think I was a crazy person not knowing me any better than you do. But just such a absolute nothing in the world makes any sense other than, some of this stuff being divinely ordered. Just the way it, the second, and really, your point being absolutely true. The second I started trying to manipulate the situation to my own plans, it's like, that's when you really get the slap on the wrist.
Yeah, it's easier to just listen to the universe.
That's right. So,
hey, listen, man, I really enjoyed this, and I really appreciate you opening up and sharing all this stuff. You're a very, very sweet guy, and I'm really happy the way your career's going for you, and I'd love to have you back in a couple of years, and we'll be in touch before that, of course. But
sure.
But I'd love to have you back to see where things are going 2 years from now, because I'm sure it's going to be real exciting.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me. It's been a joy to just get to kind of reminisce on where I've been so far, and also just nerd out about Gibson pickups and all that stuff for a half hour. I can go so far down the rabbit hole on that stuff that nobody will ever find either of us. So.
Well, John, thank you for everything. Everybody, if you want to check out John online, go check out his website at John Shaw Guitar. It's John, JOHNSHAW guitar.com. Or check him out on the road with Josh Turner. They're going all over. You're going to some pretty cool places. Look, you're going out west to Washington. It was beautiful out there, man. Man,
I'm pretty stoked. We're going to Alaska, which I've always wanted to go to. I haven't been yet, so I always like the Pacific Northwest run because I think it's one of the most beautiful parts of the country. So
I agree with you 100%. It's majestic. It's breathtaking, man.
Absolutely, man.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed both part 1 and part 2 of this interview as much as I did. I want to say thanks again to John Shaw for spending all his time with us. I truly appreciate it. You can sign up to get notified of future episodes on our website at everyonelovesguitar.com. Now be nice and go play your guitar and have some fun. Till next time, I'm out. Peace. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.